1745, just in the mic, sorry about that. Gamer 1745 here. We're going to be doing something a bit different today during the live stream, just because of the world situation. We're going to be talking eventually in about an hour. So if you're watching this later, and I know a bunch of you will, you can skip ahead about an hour if you want to catch the talk. I don't know exactly. I got some stuff prepared, actually prepared. But we'll see how it goes. Be interacting with the viewers. So, make an episode that I'll be putting up later on YouTube out of it, or episodes if it goes long enough. But so if you want to jump ahead to that, we're going to be starting with an episode of Parts of Iron 4's World Ablaze here in just a moment. Once we get in, and hello Arno, I hope your day is going well for you. I'm just thinking about loading in. Hi, how you doing? I presume that's something, well, in Ukraine, obviously. Yeah, we will be covering everyone on YouTube. I can't live stream there yet, but also I will be posting stuff up onto Rumble as well, which I have been doing for some time now. But like I was just saying, in about an hour, I'll be picking up the Ukraine topic. But I want to give people a chance to sort of arrive first before doing that. Oh, Gami Core? Sorry, I'm probably butchering that. So you're new here. Rumble, yeah, it's another video service, sort of like YouTube. Okay, well, let's get you assigned maybe to Rommel, because his unit is sort of smallish. We're going to get over to there. On rails, not on rails, you guys can go there. This is reasonable, or however you pronounce that. Okay. One division that way, 2 divisions over here. Hello Andy, how you doing? Well, I hope watching some of my videos, if you have a specific question, I would happily answer that about it. We're currently playing, oh, I'm doing just fine. I am. The world may not be, but I am. Currently playing with the World Ablaze mod. We'll give this one to Darian. Hello, Kyle Hollis. So as we contemplate what's going on here today, we're going to be playing what went on a few decades ago. Right. So we're almost done with that radar and memo, which will help cover up there. Let's put on, because I know we are low on oil. On rubber, I mean, sorry, on the rubber. Let's see if we can up this by 1. That would be nice, but we have a bit extra here. That goes. And aluminum. Bullets. Oh, Niagara, how you doing? Last time I tried this game was in 2020, and I'm going to reinstall it. Looks like everyone is playing war games. Well, yeah, they're doing something like that, that's for sure. I don't like how it sort of misfeeds me information at the start of the game. Okay, we're getting ready to invade the Low Countries in France. Hey gamer, have you been in the army? I'm new to your channel. No, closest I've been to that was the Army ROTC when I was in college. I wouldn't consider that being in the army. So I've had training like that, you know, how to be a wannabe officer, you know, reserve officer stuff way back when, but not been in the army. The 90s were a bit of a different time. I didn't feel it was a good time to go into the army then. The Cold War was ending, President Clinton was president. Just didn't seem like the thing to do. Worked in the forest today and cleaned up some damage from the storm. Oh, well, cool. Cool. Hope the damage wasn't too bad. We're getting ready to be about invading these Low Countries. I don't know how well the von Lonstein plan can work with this mod. Because already I'm waiting for barbed wire. Uh-huh. I know, I guess you're saying that as a joke. I was gonna say no, but I wouldn't blame you. Okay. Yeah, see now we have way too much iron now, so let's get rid of something. Imports that would be tungsten. We can get us more factories constructing things or repairing damage. Well, let's move these two to the top. Bomb damage, it looks like, I guess. Unfortunately, we don't control the air here well enough. How are our stocks of fighters? Not very good. Okay. Not very good. I don't think we're getting much action back in Czechoslovakia air region. So let's move these guys up to here. Put you. You're probably gonna get shot down because your old model's out of date, but still, maybe you'll do some damage before you're done. I like to micromanage my armies. I don't like... I know, let's start making an episode here. Just been getting ready to, because we're going to be invading the Low Countries here. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here, and I'm playing Hearts of Iron 4's World Ablaze mod. Yes, it's an apt name for right now. but it's an apt name back then. And we're getting ready to invade the Low Countries and swing into France. And that is going to be an interesting challenge to see how this goes. I don't know how well I'm prepared for this with this mod. Each mod, significantly changes the game. Now, got these constructing with that. Don't have enough fighters or. Can you start as any country, or is there? You can start as any country that's on the map. You just click the country, at the start on the starting screen, and pick that. They will have the major players down sort of in the center as a selection of the war, because I figure that those are most likely people to play in. You very well might want to start with a smaller country to learn the game better than trying to manage a major power. Hello, Tyler Thomas. How you doing? I think we are sort of in position and ready here for the invasion. So, before we start that, let's take a quick look at our naval operations. Thinking some vessels out there. We snuck some submarines into the Mediterranean before the start of the war. Now we have all of these sort of listed here. Most all the mods you can find in the workshop on Steam. Okay, and another thing we haven't done as well as we should. Let's get our command. Now we don't really have much mobile infantry, so we're going to. We do have motorized units in our armored units, so I guess that will help there. Got that. We've used up some of our command power as well. Welcome, anomalous. War support, political power, fascism support, right? Not that I really need to change this at the moment. Okay, so here we're going to, like I say, get ready for, or we're going to start Fall Guild. Just declared war on the Benelux countries. Now, we're going to put these guys over here, including the fighters, which are sort of somewhat needed over Western Germany, but I think we will switch them just so that our bombers are entirely unescorted. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. Hackers. Gonna really keep pushing hard with air power there. Now they've left us this open, so we're gonna just march right in that way. This is global. This is completely global. The Japanese are battling right now in China. This is completely global. And yes, there's also, you know, the Americas out here, but are relatively at peace. Okay, so what we're going to do here is move those that way. And Rommel is somewhat this way in the back.
Angetreten. Ihre Befehle. Ausrücken.
2 divisions. They're not going to win, but we're going to send 2 divisions there. Yes, even Africa. Your home country? Where are you from? Yeah, that'd be interesting. Dami Corps. I'm not sure whether you took down a transport. Do we have transports moving through here? Why do we have transports moving through here? Couldn't, I don't think. Ah, the Congo. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, I'm guessing. Yes. There is, in this mod, there is, the Belgian Congo is a sort of a sub-state of Belgium. So, yeah. Just using these as spoiling attacks. Keep them from moving against as we try to rush in through there. Well, let's slow this down a little bit. Magic. The division move there just to We got a little bit of equipment from taking out Luxembourg. Surprised that they really had any. Here, well, we're just going to keep going to Rotterdam.
Bereit zum Ausrücken. Ihre Befehle? Bereit.
Push to there immediately, not waiting to cross the river. You guys push into there, you going coming across the river, and you push down along there. I think you need to check your spelling there, Arno. My fiend. That has a very different meaning without the R. Hello, Spitfire Studios. Yeah, I know.
Achtung. Ausrücken.
You just keep going.
Achtung. Achtung.
Yeah, no, I do too. I do spelling errors, but not just a miss. Obviously, yes, a misspelling, but not just an incorrect spelling. It has a different meaning. Get across river and push.
Angetreten. Angetreten.
I'll be talking about Ukraine and Russia here in about 30 minutes, and I'll go into that in some detail and answer, at least give you my opinions of things. I don't know that I can answer the question, but I'll
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
tell you what I think is going on and some of my evaluations.
Bereit.
Bring in Slovakia, not that it's going to help us a whole lot, but we'll do that. And we can bring in the Protectorate of Bohemia and Maharan. Get our collaborator friends here.
Ausrücken.
Okay, well, you guys all move there. We've got our armor stalled here.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
We'll push it forward. Valleys. Okay, wow. Well, without us declaring war on them, it looks like, because they've joined the Allies, it looks like they're going to join, be in our cause, our enemies now, which is unfortunate. Not just unfortunate in the game sense that we, you know, don't want them in the war until we're ready to fight them. But it's unfortunate that something so, in my opinion, something so unlikely historically is happening. People were just, yeah, well, we have Arno here and Niagara. They'll help with moderating comments, I am sure. Those new here, I have a background in history. I have you know, studied military history, political history for a long time, and I think a historian, unlike some other people, but I think a historian is a good person to evaluate what's going on right now. Okay, so they've stopped pushing there. So let's grab 4 divisions, push into that with those 4. These guys we're going to push down here. People become uncivil when they don't see each other face to face. So on the internet, people will behave differently than they would in person. I think that's just a definable fact. Okay, we just took down the Netherlands. For some reason they had Johnson M41 rifles, which weren't made yet. Heavy weapons and other stuff. Good. Okay, so the Netherlands are down. We're going to keep moving around here to occupy places. North, come here. Denmark doesn't even join the Allies, so let's... I did have soldiers here. Really thinking more going north, but... Okay, we've captured, I think in the Netherlands, another... or some more factories, I should say. But will allow us to do some more shipping, so let's throw in another submarine, even though it's going to be just one so far, at least. There. Let's look at trade. Here we're bringing in all that we can. There. Let's increase this by 1 to try to get more iron in. Get across the Meuse, we might be able to push into. There. You stop going, they pushed here. Hello, Mr. Anderson. 39 curfews. In fact, all civilians will be on the street during curfew will be considered members of the enemy sabotage or reconnaissance group. Well, that's interesting. I thought they were trying to call up the people of the militia, but
Angetreten. Ausrücken.
I have heard there's a lot of talk about so-called sabotage groups. Not saying there aren't sabotage groups, but just that's what they're being called.
Ausrücken.
You give it about another 20 or so minutes. Just trying to get land back. Yeah, hello Cameroon 27. Yeah, he is. We'll be talking about what I think his goals and objectives are. Shortly. So we are here. These guys are coming across down to here.
Angetreten.
Okay, you guys head that way. I know they're entrenched. No, we're gonna push straight across the river into France. You come up to here, you come up to here. Hey Tinky! Couldn't have meddled with Ukraine in getting them closer in 2016. The European Community at the time said they might be responsible for a civil war. Yeah, I'll talk a bit about that, Tinky. Otherwise, life is great. Living is great. I don't care too much. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. We're gonna talk. I just sort of want to give people a chance to get here.
Bereit. Ihre Befehle?
Have a talk about things which I think are important. Just to talk, if nothing else. Oh, LS. Well, I'm going to talk about that. What I think is that the best they can. Oh, we got a big gap in the line here. I moved too much forward
Angetreten.
there without being on. Okay, well, we need more trucks, I know. So, what trucks take rubber? What else do we need more of? Well, we've got rifles. We've got everything. Well, fighters. Let's add some more fighters to the production. Well, you know, let's see. We have more iron. Steel mills. Well, it doesn't look like we okay. Iron shortage. So what we need to do here is trade for more iron from. Hello, Hungarian noble. In my opinion, Russia will annex eastern Ukraine and create somewhat of a puppet government like Belarus, possibly. Hungarian? Yeah, I'll get into some of this very shortly. I just sort of want to do. I have some thoughts and something I want to read to start off with. So, in Hoy, is it best to be the aggressor or the defender, if you get what I mean?
Befehle?
That's a tough question. I don't know if there's a simple answer to that.
Befehle?
Definitely the aggressor gets to set the tone of what's happening and all that kind of stuff, and that does matter. Okay.
Zuhören. Suchen Deckung. Ihre Befehle? Zuhören.
Yes, and if you're new here, whether on Twitch or YouTube, and I see the chat from both, you can give it a follow or subscribe as you like. And as Arno was saying, you can hit that thumbs up button if you're on YouTube. Okay, well, so far with this, we've achieved the goal of getting across
Ausrücken.
the Meuse River. That was sort of the big objective. The big concern for Fall Gelb. If they could do that, it was perceived, and apparently rightly so,
Angetreten.
they were going to have a fairly good success of attacking.
Angetreten. Bereit zum Ausrücken.
The YouTube. Yeah, you can just scroll down on Twitch and you'll see the links to the YouTube channel. But Arno's also posted it too. That's great. Thank you, Arno. You can watch it either place. It's the same
Ausrücken.
thing either way, but wherever you like, wherever you prefer watching. I know different countries, different regions have different connection qualities. All right. Well, I think we've achieved our first goal here, getting across the Meuse, and we're going to use that to end this part of the live stream here with it, and we're going to get into talking about Ukraine, because I do think it's an important topic to talk about, and I have some, I think, important things to say about it from my years of watching history. So thank you all here. We're going to stop this. Okay, but the live stream is going to continue here. I'm going to hit the save button. Save. Okay. Now, yeah, let's just switch over to watching the desk. Put that down. Right. You'll be back in a 1.5 hours. Okay, well, I'm going to be starting now, Mr. Anderson, talking about the Ukraine and all. I'm going to make it an episode because I'm going to post it, just this part of it, later on. But you guys, so you can watch it anytime. Okay. Just how do I want to start this out? I'm not sure, but I have some stuff prepared. Right. I'll let this noisy car, I don't know. If you're not hearing it. Okay. Historian that streams, that's new. Well, don't know that it really is, but hello, my friends. This is Gamer1745. Some of you know me, some will be new to you. Yes, I know my screen handle is Gamer. I mostly play historical games and talk while talking about history, and I am a bit of a historian. just because, or partially because of my interest and the games that I play, I often talk about World War II history. I do think, I don't know who better to talk about current events like these than a historian. I mean, I really don't know who better. I just saw some historian says, "Oh, the historians shouldn't be talking about this stuff." What? Who better to talk about it? At least paraphrase, if not exactly get the quote right, from Winston Churchill: "Those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it." Winston Churchill was a historian. He wrote histories on the life of Marlborough, one of his ancestors. He wrote the history of the English, multiple volumes, the history of the English-speaking people. So he knew history very well prior to going into World War II, and he saw the dangers of communists, the Bolsheviks, and the Nazis earlier on than most politicians really saw it and really understood how dangerous it is. And yes, we're going to be talking about the Ukraine and what's going on there and what I think about it and the importance of it. But first, I want to read something that I think is important. Rudyard Kipling. He is a 19th century English poet. He served for a considerable amount of time in India. I want to read his poem, "The Gods of the Copybook Headings." And I think it's important. And I know you're going, what? I wanted to hear about Ukraine. Well, listen to this. Because, I want to say, we're going to be talking about the Ukraine, but what's the real meaning of it and the importance of it is much bigger than either the Ukrainian people or the geography of Ukraine. You know, what's going to be the geopolitical map of what ends up being Ukraine at the end of all this is much bigger issues here. And this is this. As I pass through my incarnations in every age and race, I make my proper protestations to the gods of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall, and the gods of the copybook headings I notice last them all. I don't read these things well, I'm sorry. We were living in trees when they met us. They showed us each in turn that water would certainly wet us, that fire would certainly burn. But we found them lacking in uplift, vision, and breadth of mind. So we left them each the guerrillas while we followed the march of mankind. We moved as the spirit listed. They never altered their pace, being neither cloud nor wind born like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up with our progress, and presently word would come that the tribe that had been wiped off its ice field, or the lights had gone out in Rome. With the hopes that our world is built on what they utterly out of touch, they denied that the moon was Stilton. It's a type of cheese. They denied she was even Dutch. They denied that wishes were horses. They denied that pigs had wings. So we worship the gods of the market who promised us these beautiful things. When the Cambrian measures were forming, that's the Cambrian age way, way back when, they promised perpetual peace. They swore if we gave them our weapons, that wars of the tribes would cease. But when we disarmed, they sold us and delivered us bound to our foe. And the gods of the copybook's heading said, "Stick to the devil you know." On the first feminine sandstones, that's not feminine, feminine sandstones, again, I think another age. So I haven't, like, I've read this before, but not out loud like this. Sandstones, we were promised a fuller life, which started by loving our neighbor and ending by loving his wife. Till our women had no more children and the men lost reason and face, the gods of the copybook heading said, the wages of sin is death. In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised abundance for all, by robbing selected Peter to pay collective Paul. But though we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. And the gods of the copybook heading said, if you don't work, you die. Then the gods of the marketplace tumbled, and their smooth-tongued wizards withdrew, and the hearts of the meanest were humbled, and began to believe it was true, that all is not gold that glitters, and two make four. The gods of the copybook headings limped up to explain it once more. As it will be in the future, it was at the birth of man. There are only four things certain since social progress began, the progressives. That the dog returns to his vomit, the sow returns to her mire, that the burnt fool's bandaged fingers goes wobbling back to the fire, and that after this is accomplished, the brave new world begins, when all men are paid for existing basic minimum income. I'm sure many of you heard of that. And no man must pay for his sins. As surely as water will wet us, as surely as fire will burn, the gods of the copybook headings with terror and slaughter return. Hello, Eric. So I don't know if you guys understand that. That's Rudyard Kipling writing, I believe it was shortly after the First World War. I would say right now, none of your governments are taking any of this seriously. None of them are taking this situation seriously. Oh man. Because this has the potential of obliterating the human race. But no, this isn't some sort of, we all must have peace or some BS like that. Because as the gods of the copybook heading shows us, that social progress is illusionary. And this I'm bringing up here. The number of nuclear weapons held by countries of the world based on latest estimates, this is a recent thing, Russia still the world's largest nuclear power, is closely rivaled by the United States. Yeah, now do note that, yeah, they have more weapons, but I do believe the Americans are more able to hit their targets precisely. So, you know, a weapon that just lands just somewhere randomly doesn't necessarily, you know, it'll kill some people. It's a nuclear weapon, but do it. But keep that in mind. This is what can spiral out of war, and that is the important here. So, and I want to. I've seen. Okay. One of the basics I want to get up here and first about what we know what's going on. Okay, and let me go over the stuff that with Ukraine that we know what's going on. Russia has started some sort of military action against the Ukraine. I don't think we know a fuck else what is going on. Okay, we don't know. We're getting propaganda from both sides. I want to say this clearly, and I want to be very clear. I am totally against the invasion of Ukraine. Okay, my criticisms of what's going on, and my skepticism about what I'm seeing in the media is not in any way meant to endorse Putin's actions, okay? But the gods of the marketplace, I should say, the gods of, it's, what do you want? Do you want comforting lies or disturbing truths? The voters in the Western world, clearly since the end of the Cold War, but we can even look beyond that, have been voting for comforting lies. I watched a Sky News interviewer earlier this morning for me, talking to a woman from Ukraine. And, how can there's got to be some sort of horror story. You're making Molotov cocktails. How could you possibly think this is going to possibly happen? And he's a reporter. Any correlation with China? Oh, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. China has increased import. Yes, we're going to get there, Ari. But your governments, whether it's the Ukrainian government, hasn't taken this seriously. Every European government, every other European government hasn't taken, and I don't mean just the situation around Ukraine seriously. I mean, they're not serious fucking governments. None of these people are serious. The United States, Trump was sort of serious, but he was surrounded by a lot of wishful thinkers. Okay. I have, and here's my evidence. Now, again, I say we don't know what's going on, and we really don't. But I've seen some photos and some video that purportedly, and I believe that to be correct. Now, please always watch my language carefully when I say something, because we would have seen what's coming. No, that isn't it. That isn't it. That is not just because we've seen. No, the photos that I've seen and some videos are of the Ukrainians handing out weapons to volunteers. My fucking God, why the fuck are they handing out weapons to volunteers now? Why didn't they do that 5 years ago? Why didn't they go with like the Swiss model of, hey, everybody, can you walk? Can you hold a gun? Come and pick up a gun. We have them over here, wherever your local town. We'll get you a gun. We'll get you some ammunition. If you want to show up once a week, we'll give you, free 40 rounds to go shoot it at the local range. Everybody has a gun. Why the fuck that you've been invaded in? This is just to show right now, because we are talking about Ukraine. They've invaded Crimea. They've invaded down in the Donbass regions and whatnot there already. You've already fucking been invaded. Why the hell haven't you already done a populace handing out of guns? Why does it take an invasion for you to do that? Hello, Tanki Kita, how you doing? Voters in the West have been based. Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So citizens can spend their... well, do you want a country or not? Because if, what? Why do any of these people deserve a fucking country? And most of these countries in Europe, because there's a lot of small ones, only exist because the U.S. says they exist because of our nuclear weapons. Why does the Netherlands exist? Why does Belgium exist? Belgium exists because Britain, for many years, said it did. After the fall of the old regime and a post-Napoleonic world, Britain created Belgium. That's why it exists, because it had been part of the Austro-Hungarian, or the Habsburg Empire at the time. I know many of you are Europa Universalis players and whatnot, so you know a lot of this stuff. These countries do not exist because they can defend themselves. They only exist because the U.S. says they exist. So if you want to exist, and handing out guns. To me, is one of the most peaceful things you can do. If you want peace, prepare for war. It's a very old Latin saying. I'm not going to try to remember who it was, but an ancient Roman writer said it. If you want peace, prepare for war. And having an armed populace, because an armed populace isn't going to go invading places, okay? An armed populace protects its home. It's a professional army that goes invading places. So, let's see. I want to pull up another quote here. Okay. Here. And a few of us, we've talked about this on my Discord forum already, I know. Here. Yeah. Here. What? Stars and Stripes, military propaganda. We're going to call it that for the moment. Newspaper as it used to be. German, and this is February 24th, 2022. German Army chief says service stands bare from neglect as its forces are placed on deployment alerts. Okay, this is the head general of the German army here. He says their army is bare. They're not prepared to fight a war, in essence. Okay. So that tells me, and Tinky informed me, and I didn't know that I didn't know the last 3 German defense ministers were women. And I did see I think it was 6 of the current, I think it was 6, or it was either 4 or 6 of the current NATO defense ministers are women. Why the hell do you have women as your defense ministers? Now, am I saying, I know Tinky is here. Am I saying women can't do the job? Hell no. You got Golda Meir, you got Margaret Thatcher. No, women, as tough women. No, it's if like Tinky had, if they had served in the military at all, I would have a different opinion of them as an individual. But most of the time, now, she said that for the 3 German cases, those were all threats to Angela Merkel's political leadership, so moved them off into another post to sort of fail over there. So that was internal politics trumping defense. But often I think that they're putting women in charge of the military. So they're putting in essence, an anti-warlike, an anti-military person in charge of the military to keep the military from being the military, from being the dangerous military, because all the military wants to do is go to war, because militaries just want to go to war. But what is the most important thing a government can do? The one single most important thing a government can do is defend the country. Because no matter how good your education system, no matter how good your healthcare system, no matter how good the roads are paved, if you can't fucking defend your country, none of the rest of it matters. None of it matters. Okay? None of it matters if you can't defend your country. If you don't take national defense as to be serious. And NATO has gotten so long used to the idea of living under the American defense umbrella of nuclear weapons. Well, I'll tell you something, Europe, I'm looking at you, Europe, and I know I got a lot of European viewers right now, either now or in the near future. Not that I have anything against women, but yeah, it's the military experience thing, Arno. It's not their gender, it's not their biology, it's their attitudes and the individuals, and it's their lack of experience in the office. If they don't know how, I mean, not that they got to know how to drive a tank, but they need to know how tanks need to be operated. I don't know how to drive a tank, but as in what buttons to push. That isn't the point. But I understand military tactics. So, yeah, I know how much you may need tanks or not, whether you're the Netherlands or Denmark or Germany or Russia or whatever. You may need a lot, you may need a little, but depending on your country and your situation. But how they should be used, are they useful to you? Things like that. And they don't have this. And yeah, we'll get to Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. This is why I picked this. We're going to be looking at some maps here coming up. So all of these countries have not been taking their defense seriously because they believe the American nuclear umbrella will defend them. Well, you know what? No, sorry. I think, it can spin out of control to, massive nuclear annihilation. Yes. I know a lot of you are younger here that are watching or will be watching this later. But I grew up as a little child being taught to hide under my desk if a nuclear bomb started coming in. Now, they showed us, I think it was the movie called The Day After a few times, really, try to scare the kids. Actually, trying to scare the kids, I do believe now, looking back at it, as being, anti-nuke. This was the left's attempt at trying to spread anti-nukes around, anti-nukeism, so that the Soviet wins the Cold War, of course. So I grew up with a very fatalistic approach that, I don't know that it's going to happen in my lifetime, but if there's going to be a big war, I'm just going to be evaporated immediately because I lived in the Los Angeles area, and I knew enough that, yeah, that's where the nuclear bombs were going to rain down. So, boom, goodbye, whatever. So I grew up with a fatalistic attitude that it was probably going to happen someday before the Soviet Union in the West. There was going to be a nuclear exchange. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, I actually fear that nukes will be used somewhere in the world, more likely, just because some rogue regime, North Korea, Iran, somebody, will fire off a few nuclear weapons somewhere. But I no longer think the likelihood of massive nuclear annihilation. That has really gone down in my thinking of likelihood. I really don't think it's going to spiral out to that level of activity. So, and I've been told that Gorbachev and Reagan, the big warmonger, they both at different times or whatever, and I don't remember all the details of it. This came out years afterwards, that they went through some war games, and neither of them would push the nuclear button when their side was losing. Neither of them. Both men were rational enough, and I don't know what the situation was, but probably just losing in Europe. Neither of them would push the nuclear button. So I don't think, if tanks are driving into Berlin or tanks are driving into Paris, I don't think the U.S. will start nuking Moscow. Now, I do think if the nuclear weapons mushroom clouds start happening around America, I think we will, or missiles are heading our way, I do think we will launch. I really do think we will. Well, depends on who's president, but and so I don't know that all the presidents would. So Putin wouldn't use So now I want to get through some of these points. So the first thing you need to do, you need to understand, wherever you live, what you need to do is get yourself a gun. Okay? Get yourself a gun. What does that mean? Well, that may mean vote for the person or the party that would allow the citizenry to own guns. Or as like one of the regulars around here, although I haven't seen him here today, Fritz, he's a gun owner in Germany. He's gone through all the licenses and is a gun owner. Go through the licenses. If that is a legal path for you to do, get yourself a gun. Because what is going to be, if this situation continues, is there going to be power in Germany in 2 months? Seriously, are you going to have electrical power in Germany in 2 months? Or are they, when is the natural gas going to run out? Are they going to be able to divert natural gas tankers to Germany from somewhere else? And because I used to work in the grocery store industry, when the food runs out in the grocery stores, people are going to go looking around and it's going to run out quick. They don't, at least in America, they don't stock up food. They had been just-in-time delivery. No additional stocks other than what's on the shelves. So it's changed a bit with the pandemic. But when the food runs out in your cities, people are going to start wandering around your city looking for food. So you need to be able to protect yourself. Not necessarily from big, evil, scary Russian invasion that's already happening in Ukraine, but just from societal chaos. Because your governments have not, if you have your own, build your own bunker underground. Hey, Sir Toyjet. I don't know about building a bunker, but not that that's the worst idea. But, get yourself a gun. Because if everybody's armed, invasion becomes a more difficult situation. So I think I've got that point out here. I want to quickly go through the chat. Party like that doesn't exist in Europe. Well, form a party that will be serious about it, because you can look and find that in Switzerland. They have a highly level, of armed society. So, it exists. Now, okay. I just, I don't want to spread misinformation, because, it was Ghost of Kiev, the fighter pilot, that's untrue. All those guys that died on Snake Island, well, I just saw a video a few hours ago, supposedly, of them being taken off of a ship. They surrendered instead of died. So we don't know for sure what is true and what isn't. It does appear from the video that I've seen that things aren't going as well as planned by the Russians. Now, I don't know if this is February 25th here on one of the situation maps here that purportedly has been happening. This was already sort of occupied down here, and they've been pushing in here. Okay, here's the first mistake that Putin made, other than, of course, going to war. He didn't shut down the internet. I have a book I have a lot of books on my shelves. One of them is called Coup d'etat. It is a manual on how to stage a coup d'etat in a country, meaning, overthrow a country from within, basically. One of its, if not the most key element of having a coup d'etat in a nation is this was written back, I think, in the 80s, but was to secure the radio and television stations. because again, one of my basic maxims, I know if you've watched me a lot, warfare is a political act. Politics are perception, okay? Not reality, perception. So if you can create the perception that Russia is winning, what is happening? Russia's winning. If you can create the perception that Russia is losing, what is happening? Russia is losing. It doesn't matter the realities on the ground. It matters the perception. And this is why, and I know some of the people, I've seen on Twitter that they're sort of, well, I don't want to hear historians pontificating on this stuff if they don't have, a deep background in the understanding of the situations in, Ukraine and Crimea and the former Soviet Union, blah, 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 blah. No, bullshit. Bullshit. In 1968, the American government was telling everybody that they were winning the war in Vietnam. And they had actually negotiated a 30-day truce with the Viet Cong to celebrate Tet, the Vietnamese New Year, which is sort of around now, I believe. And basically on New Year's Day, the largest offensive of the war started by the Viet Cong. And that shocked the American people because they had been told that they had nearly won. Well, the Viet Cong had sort of stopped engaging in offensive actions against the South Vietnamese forces and the Americans, as well as the Koreans, because they had a division there, as well as the Australians. They had a division or so there. There were other nations than just America involved in the Vietnam War. And there was this massive offensive that utterly failed. But the perception in America was that we were losing the war because of that. Even though basically the Tet Offensive destroyed the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong were nothing after the Tet Offensive in 1968. We had basically won the war in 1968 because the Viet Cong, pushed by their North Vietnamese advisors, thought that they could win and hold and take territory and start to push. They utterly failed. After 1968, it became a fight between the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, and the South Vietnamese Army and the U.S. and coalition forces there. The Viet Cong was basically done. It was really, they were having to send NVA divisions south to fight guerrilla warfare because the Viet Cong was an utterly spent force. So, in my considered opinion, Vietnam was not lost on the battlefield. It was lost in the hearts and minds of the American public at home, because of the perceptions. Say America's strategic played this game very well. They put Putin in the corner. Putin is doomed if he doesn't attack Ukraine, and he's doomed if he does attack. Well, I'm going to get to some of what's going on with Putin and stuff. And so it's that perception. Politics is perception. The Nazis during World War II were able to keep up the perception to the German population that just hang on a little bit more, wonder weapons were coming. See, here's wonder weapons, whether it was the Sturmgewehr or the King Tiger tank or the V1 missiles or the V2 missiles or the Me-262 jets. So they saw real tangible wonder weapons that were real. Now, they were nowhere near enough to change the outcome. Maybe change a battle, delay the inevitable here and there. But they kept that perception that victory was possible. As soon as they can't push them out of Normandy, that should have become apparent, if not well before then. So they were able to keep that perception up. And so it took, marching boots into every corner of Germany, basically. I know you look at a surrender map, not every corner was occupied, but it took getting that to do it. So warfare is a political act. Politics is perception. They're calling sanctions within the UN to try to get Russia to veto the so. Okay. Don't worry about any sanctions in the UN. That's bullshit. It means nothing. It's absolutely meaningless because Russia and others are in the Security Council. China won't vote for it. Sanctions. Okay, what are the point of the sanctions? And I'll tell you this for probably most of the governments in what we call the Western world. The point is to show, we're doing something, people! We're doing something! We're sanctioning them! Okay, so you get my tone, it's bullshit. What I don't get is why as NATO nations acted surprised in the morning when Russia attacked. I mean, they didn't know Putin was moving his troops. I doubt it. Well, there's sort of the normalcy bias, the sort of disbelief that it's going to happen. So, I don't know what they know. So if you're going to use sanctions to do more than just simply demonstrate displeasure, you've got to have sanctions that are painful enough to change the actions of nations. Okay? And so what is happening now in Ukraine? Like I said, we don't really know, but this is from the Defense Intelligence, from official posting from Britain, from their Twitter account, checkmarked yes, February 26, 2022. Intelligence update. Russian forces have continued their advance on Kiev, with the bulk of their forces now 30 kilometers from the city center. Russia has yet to gain control of the airspace over Ukraine, greatly reducing the effectiveness of the Russian Air Force. Okay. Ukrainian armed forces continue to put up staunch resistance across the country. Okay. Russian casualties are likely to be heavy and greater than anticipated or acknowledged by the Kremlin. Okay, I think that is a reasonable basis. Like I say, we know very little, and this is very little information that we know. So keep that in mind. Hey, thanks for following. Do appreciate it. If you're new here, you can follow on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube. Thank you. And the Viet Cong were entirely wiped out. They had major losses in the battle, but they were. I never said they were annihilated. I said they were a spent force after it. It destroyed their battlefield cohesion on a national scale. It really did. They were devastated by the Tent Offensive, and you see, if you look into it, you'll see that it really becomes the NVA after 1968 that are carrying the fight on in Vietnam. And I've read a lot. I was alive then. I vaguely remember as a young child seeing some of the stuff on, probably in like 73, 74, 75, when the final fall of South Vietnam, on the television. I was very young at that time. But so I'm alive from the era, but they're just impressions as a child. Really studied it later on. Okay, so my analysis is the Russians failed to gain control of the information systems, which include the internet, television, radio. That's, I think, would do it. That they, I think I have another map here. I've sort of saved a bunch of these things. Do I have? I don't know. That's important. One that was sort of showing the first strikes all over the nation. Well, it doesn't really matter. That they, targeted a lot of air bases and a lot of military bases all over. Okay, hello. Axe forms somewhere, but don't you think that it's time that it's not about Ukraine, that they amped up or scrambled the signals right, or at least a huge amount of misinformation? Oh, there's misinformation going on, and I know some people are coming in now. We know very little. We see a lot of information being put out there. Some of it is correct. Some of it, like what originally was Russian tank drives over old man in car. Well, one, it's part of an air defense system. Two, it's been reported. It's an armored vehicle with tracks, yes, but I don't believe it's a tank. Two, it's supposedly a Ukrainian vehicle that was swerving because of fire or some incoming fire. I did see a quick clip that showed it some stuff from a different angle. So it was an accident. Fortunately, I don't know if the guy's all right, but he was alive when they were trying to get him out of the car afterwards, thankfully. But so it wasn't some evil Russian just playing smash the car. It was, oh shit. Whether it was a guy dropping a cigarette on his lap while driving the vehicle and swerved, or whether there was incoming fire and he swerved, I don't know. It appears to be an accident that the car gets run over by a tank in the middle of a war. So there's a lot we don't know. A lot of this is propaganda. Totally on that. Before World War I, Ukraine was not there. Russia controlled the area. So, well, the Russian Empire has collapsed in 1918, and the Soviet Empire collapsed, what was it, 1998, 1990, however you want to spell all that out. So the empire's collapsed. Please be civil here, but yeah, how far back do you want to go? The Russian Empire collapsed. But from the video that I've seen of, say, an armored personnel carrier, BMP like one, with the sort of white Z markings that seem to be being used as a vehicle recognition by Russian forces, sort of abandoned, and a guy's, with his, cell phone, I presume, looking around this abandoned vehicle that doesn't look destroyed. So whether it had a mechanical failure or we don't have any fuel or whatever, it's just abandoned. To destroyed columns. One, I saw a destroyed engineering column that was primarily, I think, a bridging unit. A pontoon bridging type unit. And it also had some big trucks with diggers on the back of them. That was all just burnt to some other convoys. I do think the Russians have taken serious casualties in their invasion. I would be hard pressed to think these types of columns, the damage that they have faced now, would have happened to an American invading column. And we can look at the First and Second Gulf War for this, because we had these types of units do long route marches. The longest route march in history in the amount of time was the second invasion of Iraq, where we come out of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and end up north of Baghdad. And there were none of these destroyed U.S. columns of logistics troops or other things that we're protecting them enough. Not that there's not engagement, not that there are not casualties in those wars by the Americans. They suffered, they did. Not saying it's, but the sloppiness to have your column shot up the way it was, whatever shot it up, is incredible to me. So that's telling me that the Russian army that moved in wasn't very well prepared for this thing. Hello, Night Sergeant Huntman. It's hard to get reports on Ukraine. Yes, well, because they don't want to tell you. They don't want you to know. So, just with supplies, yes, not sure. So, so things aren't going as well as they hoped. They launched a initial shock wave, but it seemed very anemic, I think, once we were able to look at it. If you remember George Bush's shock and awe over Iraq that continued, this was a minor version of it. Like I say, they did not seemingly which the U.S. did in going into Iraq the second time, shut down the communication systems. Nobody talked to anybody else unless America let them during the American invasion of Iraq within that country, because they either jammed it or they destroyed it or whatever. So they shut the command and control down. Putin either didn't even attempt to, or failed to do so in taking Ukraine. So that is their first, in my opinion, major failure of the invasion. Now, okay, so this is still a very, very dangerous situation for those outside of Ukraine right now, because there are Russian vessels in the Black Sea and there are non-Russian military or naval vessels in the Black Sea. And the Russian Mediterranean Fleet, last I heard from H.I. Sutton, he is a very good naval observer, naval submarine and naval writes articles on the subject. A day or so ago, the Russian Mediterranean Fleet was heading to Syria, to the one Russian naval base in Syria, and it apparently is holed up in the base there under the anti-air umbrella that they have there. But you could easily see a Russian vessel somewhere seeing either a surface vessel or seeing a blip on the sonar screen, as it were, and start shooting at neutral submarines. And submarines might start shooting back to defend themselves. And we could see this spiral out of the theater. Which is a danger to everyone outside of, well, everyone everywhere, potentially, like we say. Okay, we'll take longer than, how long do I think the... well, I saw a report. Again, I don't know how true this was, but Russia's out of weapons, or out of some of their missile weapons, and is running out of. Me thinking that it's Russia can't wage war for. Yeah, well, people talk about economics, but it's more logistics. It's more that supposedly, again, and trust me, I don't know that what I'm saying, I say supposedly, I'm not sure on the thing, but supposedly some of the raw materials to make some of their missiles come from places like Germany, and Germany's cut them off from it. So they're running out of munitions. At least some of their higher tech ones. I'm not saying they're running out of AK ammo. I'm saying some of their higher tech stuff. The danger, I think, of this continuing is that I don't think Putin can survive a loss here. I mean, really, can any of you envision, whether it's tomorrow or in 2 weeks, Putin pulling his troops out of Ukraine, turning around and ordering his troops to leave? Can any of you imagine that? And that he's just going to order. What is he going to say to the Russian people? Oops, I did a boo-boo. I'm pulling my troops out. What is he going to say? Yeah, he'll never do that, as Cameroon is saying. Yeah, I can't see him doing that. You know, they've arrested, supposedly, again, I want to say this, a few thousand demonstrators in St. Petersburg and Moscow or whatever that were, pro-peace. Well, Putin's been arresting demonstrators and spokesmen against him, if you will, for years now, which tells me the regime isn't very stable. Because if you're a really stable regime and you have somebody who's a critic and flees to the country, you don't send your assassins out to go kill him, because he's already left the country. He's no longer a threat if you're stable. Now, Stalin sent assassins out. Well, one, he really feared Trotsky, but others, it was mostly just to get control of the Communist Party organizations in other countries. So if you weren't on board of the Stalin program or whatever, he was more interested in killing, wayward communists than he was killing, monarchists or whatever. He wanted more purity of it, and there's more of a spread communism and his version of it than other things. But so Putin is worried, or has been worried, about his control in his country. So, or accidentally bombed Chernobyl. Hello, Star Street. Well, I heard there's fighting for, or in and around Chernobyl, supposedly. I don't know how correct, again, that is. Is meeting up with the Eastern Front in Donbass. Yeah, well, we can take a quick look there. What is the most recent one here? I saved several of these. I think we were looking here. February 25th. So this is supposedly what they've, according to, as of yesterday. And units only moved so far. According to the British Defense Intelligence, they're 30 miles outside of Kiev, supposedly, so maybe not quite as close as this shows. That leaves most of the country undone. They thought they were going to get Kharkov, and I'm going to continue using Western names of Kiev and Kharkov for these places just because I know them, and that's the English names for them. So as you can see, most of the country is not in Russian control. And there has not been a, but I understand what you're saying about 20 kilometers or whatever, 30 kilometers, yes, Russian, this was dated today, 30 kilometers. Yeah, by this time they could have made another 10 kilometers, really could have, I don't know. But I'm going from what is something of is a more reliable source than just the internet. This is from Defense Intelligence, from the British Defense Intelligence, published today. Okay, yeah, as far as you know. Yeah, against NMDB, we don't know. Like I've been saying, I don't know what's going on. We don't know what's been going on. There is the fog of war. There is the information war. There is the disinformation war. All of that is going on right now. So we're looking at what's going on. So I think this is Putin crossing the Rubicon. He is rolling the dice right now, and it is for him victory or defeat personally, because who you need to sanction, and the sanctions I don't know how badly they would hurt the standard person in St. Petersburg or Moscow, but it's the oligarchs. You need to start seizing their assets outside of Russia and putting on sanctions, and it doesn't matter what the fuck the UN wants to do, those aren't going to count. It's going to count what major nations do, because the small, and if they go say, oh, hey, Germany, France, Britain, and the US says, if you trade with something to Russia, you can't trade with us. So Sweden, you better not sell fuel or whatever it might be. I don't know. Take the World War II example. I know not so much. You can't sell steel to Russia. If you sell steel to Russia, you can't. None of your people, we're cutting you off and putting you in the Russian camp. Force everybody to be either in the Russian camp or in the rest of the world camp. All it takes is a few of the major nations to say that, all the rest of the nations will get in line to do that. Emmerdale fans nervous. Vinny Dingle's future after a whirlwind wedding. Okay, you're giving BS. British English channel have intercepted a cargo ship sailing under the Russian flag. Yes, French. I have seen that that the French have seized a ship. The Russians are saying, "Oh, it was already sold to some other company before the sanctions hit. Trust us. 5 seconds before the sanctions hit, we sold the vessel, so you got to let it go." Nope, the French aren't having any of that. They moved it back into Bordeaux, supposedly, or wherever it was. So Putin's rolled his die. He's got to win or he's going to lose. And so he's going to push this hard. Now, let's see. I wanted to bring it. Yeah, there it is. Another map. This is also another rather recent going on here. Here, this is Russia. So Lithuania, Poland, Belarus, which is just a Russian puppet, in my opinion. Of course, the Baltic states. This is Russia. Supposedly, Boris Yeltsin offered to give this back to Germany, but the U.S. said no. I didn't know that and I don't know if it's true, but supposedly Boris Yeltsin was like, hey, yeah, should I give this back to Germany? The U.S. said nope. So, when empires start pulling back. Okay, well, actually, there's a very interesting tweet from Gaijin came out today. They're stating that all of their officers, all of their servers, all their offices, all of the staff, they're supposedly in an EU country right now. So I don't know what's going on with Gaijin. So they're saying it isn't going to affect us. We're taking a low profile during this time, but whatever you think about them. So, but we have this going on. Okay, Moldova. I'm not sure why Moldova exists. I read up on it earlier this morning for me here, the recent history of it. Now, for some reason, and I don't understand this, the overwhelming majority, 90+% of people in Moldova, or at least 80+% or something, speak Romanian. But they're like 90% Orthodox, where Romanians are Catholics. So I don't know. I know until very recently they've had a communist government that had been sort of pro-Russia, but so I'm not sure why Moldova exists. Not sure why this territory here is quote unquote Ukrainian and not Romanian. I don't know. But here, this Tristina. Well, it's supposedly officially part of Moldova, but the Moldova says it's a self-governing area. The only reason this exists, and it's supposedly made up of a lot of ethnic Russians and ethnic Ukrainians or whatever, but the only reason it exists, in my opinion, is that Russia has been bankrolling it since 1992. I don't think they have an economy enough to maintain this country and maintain whatever armed forces. Somebody has to be bankrolling them outside of this. And that's got to be Russia. These are occupied parts of Georgia, South Ossetia, and Ablaze. I don't know, Zakia. I'm sorry, I'm butchering these. And under George Bush, they cut Georgia in two, but George Bush put enough of a push on Russia to get them to back off to previous lines, this current lines here. And then, of course, you have these two breakaway republics and Crimea here. I will, Miguel Neville is a bot. Okay. Well, Moldova is after Wallachia Kingdom. Yeah, I know, but which within themselves are Romania. Yeah, I know, but again, why does any country exist? Well, like I say, many European countries exist because great powers, often the U.S., says they do. Okay, right now, of course, Russia is trying to say Ukraine doesn't get to exist. You have to be able to defend yourself. Now, Georgia is sort of a nice little valley with mountains around it, so it sort of is, if it can get its territory under its control, it can sort of defend itself. This can't defend itself. I mean, how easy is it to cut it into 3 or 4 pieces and then starve it, out. So it exists because of the pressure. And so the only reason you have these countries existing is this clearly to me shows Russian expansionist interests. They want to have an excuse. No one remembers Moldova. So these are excuses. Now, of course, Russia's taken Crimea. Russia just supposedly recognizes these as independent states. Yeah, whatever. These are excuses to invade. That's all they are. They are excuses to invade. And that tells me, along with Kaliningrad here, that they want Moldova, because it had been up until like 2 or 3 years ago, a communist-led government that was pro-Russia. All the opposition parties that were fractured decided to get a united front, and only once they did were they able to push the communists into, the minority party. You have large, in the Baltic states, including I think maybe up to 40% Russian ethnic minorities here that Putin will want to protect and will need to come in. Hey, Martin Smith. So it isn't just about Ukraine. I mean, yeah, we're talking about Ukraine today because there's a war going on in Ukraine. But if Putin is successful, whatever that might look like, I thought he was trying to sort of get this territory here, the sort of south of Dnieper and, east of Kharkov, just so that, control the Black Sea. I thought, people are saying, Putin isn't Hitler. Well, no, he's not, for many reasons. But you have to look at the patterns of history. You look at something like Japan operating in China. Get Korea, good. Then they want to get Manchuria, call it Manchukuo, put a puppet state. They want to then, they sort of have a little bit of Mongolia that they sort of organize up as another puppet state. Then they want to have another war and get another bite of China, around the Peking area, the Beijing area. Japan did not want to conquer all of China. Japan, at that time, Japan knew it couldn't conquer and occupy all of China. Japan just wanted to fight a war, grab up a bunch of territory, and start organizing it up into puppet states. And they wanted to do that, and then in 10 or 20 years, whatever, do it again. 10 or 20 years, do it and keep doing it. It was the Chinese refusal to negotiate, to surrender, that frustrated Japan's push into this. I thought that was Putin's goal. And it still may be Putin's goal, though some people are talking like it's not really to take over Ukraine. And the forces that he sent really are not capable of taking over Ukraine. They just don't have enough forces to occupy Ukraine. They're saying that he thought he could do a regime change and install a puppet into Ukraine. So that seems reasonable with what we're seeing. The distance, keep in mind that it's very large supply. Yeah, absolutely. Apply around, that means that they're stretched already. Absolutely. How are you comparing? Yes, they did. But they couldn't end that war. I mean, they couldn't. If you look into the Pacific War, happened. The whole. With China. I mean, it starts as more of a Japanese-China war. I know. Is they couldn't get us a resolution out of it. So they keep having to push further and further and get more deep into it. And yeah, they controlled the key areas, but they couldn't end that war. That war was unending, and that was a problem. So I don't know that the forces moving towards Kiev, again, like I said, those of you who arrived later, we don't know what's going on. We are getting information, misinformation, psyops, all kinds of stuff going on. We don't know what's going on. I don't know. You don't know. Now, maybe, the U.S. intel monitors are listening to the radios and are carefully plotting, where the radio transmission is happening and what are they saying. And maybe they, in NATO headquarters or in U.S. headquarters has a map of every single Russian unit operating in here. They may have that. I don't know. But we out in the public don't know. We have some information, but we have as much misinformation as we do have correct information. So we don't know. But from what I understand, the forces that are moving towards Kiev, I don't know that are good enough to control Kiev. They might be big enough to surround Kiev and try to cut its food off. They may be strong enough to move in and hold down key positions. I keep hearing that they're controlling the one of the airfields. I don't know whether it's the airport or something in near Kiev that some commandos got, but I don't even know if that's true. So I don't know that these forces are enough to control, get in and control Kiev. So if the city doesn't surrender, you've got a lot of guys and men and women with AK-47s. It takes a hell of a lot too. We can look at the battles of Fallujah and other things in which, it's, I know the U.S. Army and the Marines are really exhausted after all these years of fighting, but they're so much more competent than what we're currently seeing out of Russia. So either Russia sent the B team in or the C team in, or the Russian military forces aren't so hot because they're getting a lot of stuff. 50 to 60% of forces of Russia are already involved. Yes, and I think they're going to have to push in more. So it doesn't appear that the Ukrainian people are disenchanted with their current president, Zelensky, or the government. It doesn't appear that they appear defeated. So Putin's going to have to push harder. And I don't know what that's going to do. So I think if, because I don't know what's going to happen. But what I think could happen is we could see a coup against Moscow. Okay, so, the peace demonstrations that you may have seen videos of in Moscow or St. Petersburg, yay, cool, whatever. That ain't going to change a damn thing, okay? That ain't going to collapse the Russian government. Two things will collapse the Russian government. One, I know, if you look back at the Afghan invasion, is eventually, once it really sunk into the Russian people, because they really hid the number, just how many of the Russian soldiers died in Afghanistan. That, the mothers, the wives, the whatever, of all those men lost, that is what really started to put a lot of pressure on the Russian government, the Soviet government at the time, excuse me. That was a major pressure. So if there's huge numbers of casualties, apparently, again, warfare is a political act. Politics are perception. So if the perception is you send your sons off to die in Ukraine and that's all that's happening, that, whether it's true or not, that will affect the government more. But the other one is the oligarchs, as we call them in Russia, is all those, and they're mostly all men, all those rich men in Russia, the kleptocrats. They will see this as a problem, and they will see that they have a person that they can put in charge, that can deal with this. I'm going to butcher his name, but Moldova, he has that really weird name. The former president, the sort of Putin's actual puppet for a while. They could put him in charge, and he could come and show up and be the peacemaker. What is Nazgul 41 saying? On one hand, it makes sense to send in B-grade material, absolutely in conscript, but on the other hand, the longer the war continues, worse for Russia. It might be more likely Russia can't afford a modern war. Well, yeah. I think you are underestimating Putin, just how well the war is going. Well, again, and I don't know if you were here, Ari, the war is going as well or as badly as people think it is. Okay? It's all about a perception, in my opinion. If it is perceived that Russia is winning, then it's winning. If it's perceived that Russia is losing, it is losing. No matter what the reality on the ground is, I think the perception, Putin's invasion, even it doesn't make any sense if he's going to go for all. Yeah, he doesn't really. He has. We'll see what he wants to do. I think now I'm adjusting. I think he wants to install a puppet government in Ukraine, because they used to have one until the Ukrainian Revolution. And what was that, 2014 or something? I'm sorry, I forget on dates. And he wants to have a peace agreement, in my opinion, is to, east of Kharkov, south of the Dnieper here, turned over to Russia. That, I think, is his sort of immediate goal. He wants Belarus number 2, South Belarus kind of situation, and that it's a Russian puppet, and slice off this bit of territory. That is what I think he wants to do. Kevin, Russia will go after the Baltic state. Yes. I don't know so much Finland or Sweden, but the Baltic states, see, if he's successful, he's going to push more. He's going to push into Moldova. He's going to push into the Baltic states. They have Kaliningrad. He's going to, in 10 years from now, he's going to do what Germany was doing with the Sudeten Germans. He's going to create incidents in which he's going to be able to put on his TV of Russian minorities being harassed by neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And that's what, Medvedev. Yeah, that's it. I'm butchering that. Sorry. It's hard for us Westerners to say that. There's what you could take to cut off the Baltic states. Well, see, he just needs to destabilize them enough. Yeah, the former Russian president. That's right. Medvedev. Thank you for putting it up there. He just needs, you see, if he hadn't pushed into Kiev, if he had only pushed into here with his plan of peacekeeping forces, he might have gotten away with it. He just needs to get his, what they call, little green men, meaning Russian operatives not wearing any particular uniform. to stage incidences to then get the governments here to react and or radicals to go after, burn down a Russian home or two, or a Russian Orthodox church, or whatever it might be. And then he can simply say, destabilize the situation, and then try to present it to the world as he's moving in to create stability. That is how he would do this. And these are much more vulnerable than going up to Finland or Sweden. But I think he's pushing this way. Seeing new materials with artillery and support vehicles run out of fuel. Loss seems racing. Yeah, as fast as possible. This may support the intelligence of the former head of the Estonian Defense Forces and current European Parliament. It is sharing, stating that Russia can only sustain 10 days of combat. They won't attack the Baltics. That's part of NATO. That would be suicide. Why? Why? What would be suicide about that, Ari? Please explain. What would be suicide about that? That we're going to send nukes because they go into Tallinn or Riga? No, we're not. The U.S. isn't going to nuke Russia over it. Germany's already stated it can't. It's stripped bare. It can't deploy any forces. Yeah, but what? Who? We've already, the German leading German general in Germany says we're stripped bare. We can't do anything. Who in NATO is going to respond? Who? I read a description of the French are retasking their aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, to support NATO operations basically out of Romania. It's staying in the Mediterranean, but it's going to move up there. And it listed the forces that are part of the task force. I don't know if I have that real quickly here to bring up. Let's see if I do. I can read that. This is to give you an idea of NATO right now. Yeah, here it is. Okay. The Charles de Gaulle, the main French aircraft carriers right now refueling. Okay. The main French aircraft carrier, who is in the Mediterranean. France has a Mediterranean coastal country, right? Okay, so it's not very far from home. It's in the Eastern Mediterranean, okay? The main French aircraft carrier is in the Eastern Mediterranean. And what does it need to do? Started a logistic stop in Cyprus. Okay, so the French have difficulty in supporting, needs a logistical stop in Cyprus because they're so far away from home. What the fuck? Their carrier needs to go get gas because it's too far away from home? Huh? Because it needs to shift, and this is because it needs to operate against or be prepared to support. This is an article, I think it's dated today. No, that's something else. Where is the date? Yeah, today. This is today's article here, February 26th. So it's rushing as fast as it can to support what's going on. NATO, they talk about in Romania, but it has to stop in Cyprus to get gas, basically, whatever it is they're getting. Okay, so this left it when it deployed from Toulon at the beginning of the month. So it's been out less than a month. The Charles de Gaulle was composed of, the group was Charles de Gaulle, Horizon type air defense destroyer, Farbin, air defense whatever frigate, Alsace, frigate Normandy, Durance class replenishment oiler, Marine, Rubis class SSN, U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke destroyer, USS Ross. So it needed a U.S. destroyer to make up this group because the French didn't have enough ships. It needed a U.S. ship. The Spanish Navy's Alvaro de Bazan class frigate got a Spanish frigate in there because it needed some more stuff, more ships. Wasn't big, couldn't support it. The French couldn't put their own task force together. the French, okay, the Hellenic Navy's LE-class frigate, Andreas, a Hellenic Navy submarine, and a Belgian helicopter on board. I had to look up what an NH was. That's a Belgian helicopter. Belgium is supplying a helicopter. This is real, people. Okay, this is NATO. NATO, less than a month at sea, they got to stop at Cyprus for gas, and they haven't even left the Mediterranean yet. And the U.S. carriers can operate globally and not stop for gas to go anywhere they need to go, because they'll get the gas there. So what the hell is NATO? And we're not talking U.S. NATO, we're talking European NATO. European NATO is nothing. I don't know what the hell you think area is going to do it. Who's going to do what? So yeah, I think NATO's response articles are response articles honestly rush right, but yeah, elderly Marine meeting. So yeah, this is the French Navy's operating. I bet the French Navy has the best food, though. Yeah, I saw an article about the Charles de Gaulle within the last year about how good their French bread is baked daily on board. It's baked daily, a roll or two of French bread, significant per soldier per sailor every single day on the Charles de Gaulle. There is literally a French bakery on the Charles de Gaulle baking fresh bread. You're absolutely right, Starstreak, and I did see an article on that. So, yeah. So, that is the priority. And I'm not saying... and they also have nice, supposed good French wine. They keep a large stock of that on board. Where the U.S. vessels are dry, meaning there's no alcohol on U.S. vessels. And I think the British Navy is dry now, too. I'm not sure on that. But so if you're an alcoholic, once you go to sea, you don't get alcohol in the United States Navy. Until you get back home, until you get back to port, you don't get alcohol. The French, of course, have French wine on board their vessels. As a daily, I doubt it has a brothel, but who knows. So, they get a daily wine ration or whatever. Probably not enough to make them super drunk unless they hoard it up or something. But, yeah. Have mandatory service in practice. Okay, yeah, but, they're not going to take the Baltics all at once. It's going to be a one at a time. It's going to be a destabilized thing. And I'm not saying they're going to succeed, but my impression is Putin will keep going until he's stopped. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to put tanks into Moscow to stop him. It just is he's going to push until he can't push anymore, for whatever that means. And Europe is unprepared to deal with this. Just wait until the Regia Marina makes her move. Yeah, it's likely a parody and only will happen. Yeah. So, yeah, I also have a little bit of a naval background, including my dad worked his entire basic working career working for the United States Navy, meaning working on a base, and even though he wasn't in the Navy, periodically deployed to naval vessels for some stuff I'm not going to get into now, but as a bit of a technical person. So I have and I used to have access to it. When he was there, I had a pass to get onto the naval base, and so spent a lot of time around the United States Navy. So I know it moderately well. So yeah, Europe, maybe because we're not seeing a swift demise yet to Ukraine, and we're seeing significant Russian casualties, maybe not as fearsome as we've thought it could be. We're not talking about the nukes, we're just talking about everything else. That maybe Europe can defend itself, but Europe has not been serious about defending itself. As Tinky pointed out to me, it was, all the defense ministers last three have been women that have all been threats to Angela Merkel, so she moved them off into the the Minister of Defense. It's sort of a, hey, yeah, give him a high-profile job kind of thing and whatnot. So Serbia now is in a strong position. Maybe their decisions prevent another Balkan war. Hello, Dijon Dermaku. Well, I don't know what, I know the only two nations that are really haven't condemned, is that one of the maps I saved, really haven't condemned, is it? No. So this is, this is talking about NATO here. But yeah, the Baltic states, just because Kaliningrad are very vulnerable, is Serbia and Belarus are the only two that I know of nations that haven't officially condemned. Though I don't know if anybody's asked Moldavia, but haven't condemned the invasion. So I don't know what they would try to do, what they want to do, Serbia. If Russia can't blitz through Ukraine, then it's not likely they can push anywhere into NATO, considering U.S. bases. Well, again, you're too vulnerable for you to lose, you also. Okay, you got to understand, though, why is this happening now in Ukraine, now today, in the last week? I could say that under George Bush, when they invaded Georgia, they pulled back to the start line after their success because they were too afraid of George Bush, a Republican. I could say that under Obama, they grabbed up Ukraine. No, not Ukraine, sorry, Crimea. They grabbed up Crimea. I could say under 4 years under Trump, they didn't grab up a single damn thing, which is quite true. Now, I have heard in the last few days that supposedly in one of the meetings direct meetings between Trump and Putin, Putin's puppet, Trump, said to Putin, if you invade Ukraine, I'll bomb Moscow. And Putin laughed, and no, you won't. And he goes, I'll make those shiny domes disappear, or those gold domes disappear, or something like that. And that Trump threatened him. Now, of course, we all know that for the 4 years that Trump was president, all the Democrats out there always said that Trump is the most stable and sane and rational person on the planet has ever seen. Oh, wait a minute. They said he was a madman. So who do you believe? The Democrats are saying Trump is a madman, and madman Trump says, I'm going to bomb Moscow if you're going to go in or not. He may have said that. I don't know. But we know Putin did not make any aggressive military moves under Trump. Now under Biden, is it because Biden's a Democrat that this is happening? Well, I think this is happening because of what happened in Afghanistan. So, because of what happened in Afghanistan, well, yeah, Georgia is, I don't know why Georgia hasn't been scooped up again. And so because of the collapse in Afghanistan, and because of our lack of reaction, because when it was collapsing, we could have, even though we were withdrawing our land power, we could have been, just an aside, we had trained the Afghan army to fight under U.S. air support, okay? So if they were getting seriously attacked, in come American aircraft. They need to attack somebody else, they would do it under American air support, meaning there would be airstrikes, and then the Afghans would, whenever you have here's the problem with, if you have an army called the Afghan National Army, that's a problem. Should just, because you don't do the German National Army because there's some other armies in Germany. No, because it was a false force. It was the Afghan National Army. No, yeah, it was a cobbled together mishmash of BS. You can talk to Fritz someday about his experiences trying to train some of those people. But they were trained to fight with support from American Air. And had that been provided, you would not have seen the collapse that you did. I'm not saying that after the U.S. withdrew ground forces, they wouldn't have eventually lost. But because America was unwilling to put in air power, it collapsed. Oh, and remember, you're talking about the NATO treaty things. In 1975, in Vietnam, we can go back to that, the U.S. had treaties or written promises, shall we say, that if the North Vietnamese government were to invade South Vietnam, they would do two things. One, primarily, they would every round of ammunition, every bomb, every artillery round fired, every bomb the South Vietnamese drop, America would send them a replacement. So they would keep sending in, ammunition to allow the South Vietnamese to fight. Oh, and if they start moving in aircraft over your country, we will, of course, come in with a carrier and give you some air cover. Neither of those happened in 1975 when North Vietnam invaded South Vietnam. And after a few weeks, it took a little while, but once it became apparent that the U.S. was not keeping to its written promises, the South Vietnamese government collapsed and the army collapsed. So the mere fact that you have written promises, remember, there was a very strong written defense agreement between France and Czechoslovakia. Didn't seem to help with the Munich conference, so I don't know what the hell people are saying this NATO thing is going to be helping out. And the reason, of course, France was willing to go to war, note my words, France was willing to go to war over Czechoslovakia if Britain was going to join the war as well. Britain decided not to join the war. Now, I said that way because I don't know that Britain or France was willing to fight Germany. They were just willing to go to war and, hide behind the Maginot Line and let Britain try to, play naval games out, in the North Sea to try to cut Germany off again, out here. But since Britain wasn't going to join, France didn't. So if America is not going to join in the war to defend somewhere in Europe, because the next president is Ron Paul or Rand Paul or one of the Pauls, and they believe, no American soldiers are going to set foot outside of American territory ever again, what the hell are you going to do? Because parties change, things change. You're living under the delusion that America is going to be there to help you. It might be, but it might not. What is Dijon saying? I think nobody expected the series. Yep, there was no other. Left for the Russians to reverse pro-Western paths. Yeah. Hello, Beam Slam. How you doing? Once a note that said, "Peace in our time." A little piece of paper. Well, actually, it didn't say that. It said "Peace for our time." And it didn't say that. Chamberlain comes out and says, he holds up the Munich Agreement and says, "Peace for our time." I think he couldn't finish the sentence. "Peace for our time to prepare," because he didn't push as hard as Churchill wanted to, but he pushed starting then to rearm Britain after the Munich conference. He only started to rearm Britain after the Munich conference. And that was peace for our time, not peace in our time. There's a distinction in the language there. So, yeah, America needs to maintain system who is granting U.S. supremacy. Well, there's a bunch of Americans that don't want to do that anymore. So, I think a lot of people outside of America don't realize how much the Republican voters are sick of sending soldiers overseas. It's the Republicans that are doing that. Yeah, I hear you. Profit, profit, profit. That's what we've all been hearing since World War I, and it's largely not true. But yeah, that's the claim, the communist claim. They always go back to profit. I see that in a lot of the communist propaganda of the interwar periods and the Cold War periods. It's always everything is profit. Just heard the air siren in Kiev. I'm following the situation on various. Yeah, I saw some of those last when I checked Beam Slam. There was nothing going on, but very good. Let me know if something happens. Perhaps, but when they see how much they will lose, they might change their mind. No, well, you see, the American media, or the American people has lost trust in the American media. The American media, and those of you overseas don't know maybe how much, but the American media burnt so much of its trust on its attacks against Donald Trump that so much of the American people just don't trust them anymore. You know, they could say that it's noon and people will still want to go and look and see if the sun's up. Well, I should be getting both chat. But I haven't gotten any YouTube in a little while. Last was Dijon. I don't know if there's been more here. Oh, bot on YouTube, yeah. So, yeah. Do any of you have particular questions? I mean, you've been giving some, but what are you worried about? What do you guys think? Because I've been giving you I know you've been a lot of stuff. What do you think about the general future of what's going on? Is this the high watermark of Putin? Yeah? Oh, I'm worried about nukes. See, if it wasn't for the nukes, I wouldn't have, because I'm living out here in California, in the United States, I wouldn't have much worries. But this, again, is one of the reasons I sort of saved this ready to put up here is, the nuclear weapons around the world. Oh, one other thing I wanted to talk about. Within the last 24 hours, let's see, I put it up, I think here. Did it not get here? Okay, this is all in Chinese, of course, but I hear China announces military exercise in the South China Sea across a 6 nautical mile wide radius from Sunday to Tuesday, and realize that it's already sort of Sunday there for them. So China is doing maneuvers, and I also saved this graphic here. This is Taiwan. This is China. Scores of dark vessels belonging to China's maritime militias are operating in contested waters. And I think they're all these sort of dark, but these are all the vessels at, this is within the last couple of days, within the last few days. This is all the vessels operating, not just military, but just all the vessels operating out around this part of the world. Here we can see. And I don't know what all the color coding means, but China is watching. Now, China has a very large navy, but large doesn't mean capable, it just means big. I don't know if they're, and it's seasonal too. It's sort of like the old days whenever France wanted to invade England, could only do it during certain seasons because of the wind. It's sort of seasonal as to when you can successfully invade Taiwan, because there are very few landing reports, and I'm not the expert to know right offhand. And I don't really know. The willingness of China to invade is there. They stated it. The ability to China to invade successfully, I don't know. But they're definitely looking at the idea. And I think China is watching particularly the U.S. response, because they don't really care about NATO. They care about Britain a little bit, Australia a little bit, Japan some, and the U.S. a lot. Korea maybe a little bit, but they're not really worried about NATO. Because what the hell is Germany going to do to them? What the hell? France can't even get a carrier out of the Mediterranean without a gas stop. How are they going to get a carrier to the Pacific Ocean? And it's only been just recently the Dutch actually got a ship into the Pacific Ocean finally, a Dutch naval vessel, in the last like 2 or 3 months. Finally, I mean, after like 20 or 30 years of not being able to get out there. They got a ship out there. Oh, as part of a joint task force with America and others, I'm sure, giving them fuel because they need gas to get there. But yeah, this, and if you think your GPU prices or your GPUs are hard to get or your other computers are hard to get, Taiwan, there's a lot of the semiconductors are made there as well as in China. If China gets all these controls there and the chaos that happens, it's going to affect you guys a lot. Let's see. I want to see what we can produce. Not really worried. Just said grew up knowing full well that we'll be blown to pieces when it escalates. But man, I've just had my daughter, and I really want everyone to go home. Yep, I hear you, Tinky. I bet if Putin is not put into check, then China actually. Yeah. I don't know how quickly they think they can do it. See, it's perception. How successful will the admiral tell Xi Jinping his invasion will be, and what do they think the U.S. reaction as it's happening? Not will you, because it won't slow them up a moment if all they think the U.S. reaction will be in sanctions over Taiwan. It won't slow them up a moment. It'll simply be, when is the weather? When is the ships loaded? When can we go? If all they think the U.S. is going to do is put sanctions on. Again, a story is going around that when Xi Jinping was at Mar-a-Lago with Trump having dinner, Trump gets up, leaves, come back, sits down, and just announces to the table that he's there eating with Xi Jinping. We just sent a bunch of cruise missiles into Syria, and whatever was one of the strikes into there. Ones I think maybe some of the ones that killed a bunch of Russian mercenaries, and says to Xi Jinping at the table, if you invade China, I'll bomb Peking or Beijing. Again, I don't know if this is true, but this is going around. So if they think there's going to be a serious military reaction, doesn't mean that they think Beijing is going to be bombed, but if they think the United States Navy is going to be fighting in defense of Taiwan, I don't think they'll invade. But if they think the political, and of course General Mark Milley, sometime after that, was on the phone secretly to Chinatown, don't worry, I'll let you know if they're going to actually bomb you. Because he was an anti-Trumper, and he's admitted that he's done this. So this isn't rumor. He said that he called China a couple of times and told their defense minister or whoever the hell, I'll let you know if Trump is really actually meaning it, if he's going to bomb you. So if they believe that all it's going to be is sanctions, they'll invade Taiwan, in my opinion, as soon as they're ready. But I don't know what their perception of Biden or whoever the president might be right now. It really is. Okay, and so yeah, I fear China won't wait that long. Just going through the fighting. Just started in Kiev. Okay, interesting. Small arm fire. Now, small arm fire doesn't mean heavy fighting. It just means that people are trigger happy, maybe. would be suitable for amphibious. Yeah, there's not a lot of places good for landing there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to put my trust on. Hello, Chuck. How you doing? Because that's how you pronounce it. And Putin has future conflicts with China, Islamic world. Well, China and Putin are moving closer together. And mine top everything else. I don't think he's worried about the Islamic world. I think they've largely pulled out of the Islamic stuff outside of supporting Assad. Big bad country right now. It's not seeming as big as maybe, but we'll see. What would you say to the people who say Ukraine war is none of my business, it's not our war? Well, it isn't. It isn't my war. Okay, here's what I think America should do. And everybody can have an opinion on it. This is just mine. And this is what they should have done before. America has, but okay, here's what they've done wrong. We'll start with that. America is often drawing lines in the sand. They set up an agreement, whether you want to call it a treaty or not, with Ukrainian government that if they give up their nukes, because this was at the end of the Cold War, if they give up their nukes, the U.S. will make sure that Russia doesn't invade, meaning that they will militarily protect Ukraine from Russian reinvasion. Well, of course, Ukraine was stupid enough to go along with this. The Americans made this pledge. Now, of course, they've invaded Ukraine and earlier, taking Crimea and whatever, didn't really do much of anything. They kicked them out of the G8. It's now down to G7 or G5 or however few it is. Oh my God, they kicked them out of it. Yeah. Okay. Kicked them out of the G whatever. As it G9, G7, G8, G what, goes up and down as to how many people they're having at the meeting at the time. Kicked them out of that and a few other things. Yeah, okay. Is they keep making promises. Make promises to an Afghan government. Make promises to an Iraqi government. Make promises to whoever, and don't keep them. What America needs to do is not be uncertain, like maybe people think Trump is, but be very certain. And make sure everyone believes it. To say, if you move troops past whatever sort of lines, you can draw them on a map, we will do this. And what I would say, people aren't going to like this, but what I would do is, if they come into Ukraine, I would have said, first, we're going to immediately freeze all Russian assets, private, government, corporate, whatever, in the United States controls. This is what I'm saying if I was the U.S. president. We will freeze all Russian assets, basically confiscate them. May or may not ever give them back, but we'll confiscate them. We will immediately start the process of ejecting all Russian nationals from U.S. soil. Yeah, I know there's a lot of illegal alien Russians that are here. We don't know where they are. But start with the rich and powerful ones in America where we can find, and immediately show up at their place with ICE agents, escort them out of the country, and fly them to some, charter airplanes and drop them off at some place like Helsinki. I mean, literally with no notice. Just show up at their place. Come with us. Get your people, and just start with the richest ones, and work your way down, just ejecting all Russians. And then I would target trade with Russia after that, and say that no U.S. goods will be imported, be sold to Russia, and the U.S. will not buy any Russian goods or resources. And just spell that out, that is what's going to happen if you invade Ukraine, like what they're doing now. I would, and do it beforehand, and make sure that they know it's going to happen real. And if they, and so you notice I sort of said stages, start with one and then keep going so that they know that this is, start doing it, start ejecting these people, start sending them out, and get really serious about lines in the sand. And do not draw a line in the sand that you don't mean to keep. Because they used to draw lines in the sand in Syria and other places. If you use chemical weapons, we'll bomb you. Well, maybe, maybe not. So that's what I would have been doing. Not to send in U.S. troops into Ukraine. Not to go to war with Russia, but really do it and mean it. Put sanctions on and mean it. And I think a few other nations that might have done that. So the U.S. needs to be more certain. So yeah, I don't know that we need to go to war with the U.S. will go to war for Taiwan. Mark my words. No, I think so. But again, Alex from somewhere, remember what I say. Warfare is a political act. Politics is perception. So does it matter if the U.S. will go to war over Taiwan or not? It matters what China thinks the U.S. government will do. So if China thinks the U.S. government won't go to war over Taiwan, that means they'll invade Taiwan. Now, they may be successful, they may be unsuccessful, because maybe our carriers will launch a bunch of aircraft and sink all their landing craft, and we'll watch the Chinese fleet sink to the bottom of the Taiwan Straits. Or maybe they'll still come across, America will fly some bombers over there, sink some Chinese boats, but more will land and they'll take over Taiwan. I don't know what the outcome will be. I'm not saying I'm an expert to know what everything's going to happen, but I do know enough, that I believe I know enough, that if they think the U.S. won't use military force, if they think so, then they'll do it when they're ready. That's my impression. I think if people think it's their war, they should go volunteer and defend. Yep, I figured you typo. Yep, if you want to go defend, you want to get on an airplane, anybody, and if you're in Europe, you can get on a train and go to Ukraine right now. The borders are open. You can go. The only thing you could help Putin would be quick fall of Ukraine and stuff. Yep. That's Russia army may be able to break the neck. Yeah, well, if it becomes, so you got to remember, warfare isn't always about armored divisions fighting armored divisions. It can be asymmetrical warfare. Now, we largely won that asymmetrical warfare in Iraq. In the last one, we largely did, and then once we pulled out, then I'm not saying 100% we won everywhere, but largely we won. Then once we really started pulling out, then of course Iran sort of steps in and starts pushing in hard there. Can Russia airdrop or helidrop directly into government headquarters in Kiev? Well, I was informed, I don't know how reliably, that supposedly the Ukrainians shot down a Russian transport plane with troops on board, but I don't know if that's just more propaganda. I don't know. The Ukrainians have surface-to-air missiles that can shoot down transport airplanes. I don't know where they are, don't know how many of them there are. I don't know how many missiles, because they may have, chaff and flares and whatnot to spew out to protect them. How successful, you may need to fire 6 missiles to shoot down one aircraft, or maybe just one missile to shoot it down. I don't know. They can. How many are, they lost a lot of aircrafts, to anti-aircraft fire on D-Day, before, the night before. I don't know how many aircraft you're going to shoot down, how many you're going to get through. I don't know, but yeah, they, yeah, lethal weapons. My guess is that Putin has, I think he's miscalculated a lot. I forget which king it was, but, way back, the Oracle of Delphi, I think it was one of the kings over in Asia Minor. But I think a Greek one maybe. He was getting ready to go to war with one of his neighbors, and he sent an emissary to go find out what the Oracle of Delphi was, and the Oracle comes back and says, if you invade, a great empire will fall. So he took this as good omen and went into the war, and of course his empire fell. So yeah, this is probably why Putin's going to have to push hard, because I think personally he will fall if he doesn't have some sort of victory that he can point to. but I do think they can do an asymmetrical warfare. It's coming from you that's following U.S. promises is due. It's comforting to hear from you that following you. Yeah, don't. And I know, Lorgus, you weren't around early on, and I don't know those who went to, and this has been sort of a longer episode than I thought, but get yourself a gun. That was everybody out there, get yourself a gun. Like I say, I know one who hasn't been around today, but he's a German. He's gone through all this stuff, and he owns a gun at home. An assault rifle. Went through all the stuff to get permission to get those. Get yourself a gun. Everybody needs to get themselves a gun. Arm your nations up. Do not rely on the American military or the American nuclear umbrella, because we are not going to nuke Moscow to save Berlin. We might nuke Moscow to save Britain, London, just because of the Anglo-American relationship. So we're not going to nuke that. And if you can't defend yourselves, and depending on who's the president, because the sort of libertarian right on America doesn't want troops even stationed in Germany anymore. They want to bring all U.S. troops everywhere home. There's some extremes on that. And the Democrats, they don't live up to their commitments and don't go very strong on most things, unless it's, of course, beating up minor nations and third world or something. But other than that, they don't go hard against Russia. They're the Russian puppets, have always been, whether it's Soviet or Russia. So don't trust America. I made a whole video and I got a bunch of people unsubscribed from it and downvoted it. But don't trust. America is not your friend. It has its own interests. You've got to rely upon yourselves. You need to do that. Germany improved delivery of 400 German-made anti-tank weapons. Good. Yeah, and I would also I'm not against the idea of the U.S. or somebody else sending weapons to Ukraine. Not our most advanced, most high-tech stuff, but, basic anti-tank, tow missiles or whatever the equivalent they want to send, the javelins or whatever. Yeah, send those things. Sure, send them some stuff. But you see, it's asymmetric warfare, and you just have to keep. Most all of the insurgencies in the Cold War, in my opinion, most all of the insurgencies in the Cold War could have been won by the West had they not been supported by the Soviet Union and China sending in massive amounts of aid. I think Rhodesia could have won if it hadn't, if the guerrillas hadn't got massive aid from other countries. You can see Britain winning in the Malaya emergency because they were able to choke off aid because of the tiny little border up north, and the British naval power was able to keep the Malayan guerrillas from getting more aid in, and they choked them off. It was always the whether a massive flow or a minor flow, either way, or somewhere in between, of aid into the guerrillas is what brought down all of those countries around there. And, whether it was in Asia or in Africa or Latin America, if it was just a local uprising, most all of them would have failed. So I do not believe Russia is capable of holding Ukraine down if the Ukrainian people are willing to fight and people are sending in weapons to them and munitions. That's my view. Still trying to get through chat here. Okay, Chernobyl, Afghanistan economic collapse, ships busting into flames in Russia, constantly fucking up. West has come along and pick them up and put them on their feet again. Yeah. Well, cool. With asymmetric marks. Yeah, so it's asymmetric. You need to worry about. Just think, my country sells tons of shit every quarter to the Saudis, and now they give 400 RPGs. Yeah, I hear you on that. They cannot control or do much about rich Russians if they hold British passports as well. That's bullshit. They can do what they want. Um, are you trying to tell me that if the government, if Churchill, well, what about all these Germans in Britain that also have British passports? Well, we can't do anything about them. No, they rounded them all up. They could round them up. It doesn't matter. If they hold British passports and US passports, it doesn't matter. They can do so. Yeah, that is a BS government. We're not fucking serious about that statement. They can do what they want to do. They just don't want to rock the boat too hard. Again, most of these sanctions appear to look like, for most of these countries, appear to look like we're sanctioning Russia just so that we can say we're doing something. See, we support the Ukrainians. We put up yellow and blue banners and lights in our city. Yay! We'll tweet about support Ukraine. Yay! That'll do it, right? Yeah. That's about as serious as a lot of these governments are getting with this. If they really want to use sanctions as an effective weapon, they have to do what the U.S. did when Iran took over the U.S. embassies and seized all the property. Now, the U.S. let Iranians who were anti the regime of Iran either stay in America or come to America, but got rid of all the Islamic radical Iranians. So if, and these were people that if they went home, they would be imprisoned or killed. So yeah, so if you have, dissidents, people who you truly believe are dissidents from the Russian system, meaning that they don't hold property in Russia because all their property in Russia has been confiscated already, and if they go back to Russia, they're going to be imprisoned or killed. Yeah, but if you're talking about, yes, I sort of have dual citizenship or dual passports, no, that's BS. That's BS. To partake, of course, no NATO. She said, okay. Can be shut down, more reliable. Very disappointed with Germany's government, but I welcome step in the right direction. Obama's tough guy, line in the sand. Yeah, right. As a sailor, I don't really care about what happens to Taiwan. Yeah, well, it's a strategic problem for us right now. I do believe we are starting to spin up semiconductor fabrication in America, but right now most of it comes from Taiwan and China for the world, as well as much American medicine and other things that we really need to do it. 30 years, no one thought about invading Russia to join NATO. Oh, okay. Well, okay. See, here's the problem with inviting Russia to join NATO. Turkey's a member of NATO. Turkey has been recently, in the last few years, they've gone through coup attempts, lots of stuff. Basically, Turkey is cut out of the NATO command and control loop and not given access to some of the more secret and sensitive stuff. So what you would have right now is if Moscow joined NATO, you would have a NATO country invading Georgia, a NATO country invading Syria. You'd still have the dictator. You really want to put, way back, because they did sort of talk about having Russia come in when Boris Yeltsin was president. They actually did. There was a bit of a talk about that. But do you really want to have dictators in NATO? Think about that, people. And that's a serious question. And so, it's just like, well, let's just say Denmark is going to open up concentration camps. I'm trying to go for something that didn't have a historical thing. And they're just putting, left-handed people in concentration camps. Well, no problem. They're a NATO member. They get that. Oh, they're gassing the people from the. Okay, no problem. They're in NATO. So you have to judge who you let into something like NATO, in my opinion. And I don't know that Russia's ever really got to that point. One step further with my thoughts, Putin did check response. Now China will follow. Perception time may be over, but perceptions are always changing. So it depends on how and what happens with Ukraine. And that's the next step. I'm just waiting to see reaction. Just trying to catch up with the chat. Germany and U.S. are the biggest to the eco aid for the later decades. Germany price trying to push U.S. from Europe. Yep, they've been trying to push us out of Europe. Better Iran with cyber warfare too. Yeah, being sent to Taiwan. Most enlisted sailors just won't care. Oh right, Nord Stream 2 is gone. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, what are you guys going to do in Germany for fuel in a few months? For electricity? I'm serious. What are you guys going to do if your Nord Stream is gone and supposedly a bunch of, again, I don't, like I said earlier on, I know not everybody's been here. We really don't know what's going on in Ukraine. We hear things. Often they've turned out to be the opposite. Russian tank drives over a car? Nope, it was a Ukrainian anti-aircraft, tracked armored vehicle thing, swerved for incoming fire or something, drove over the car. So we're often getting bad information. So we don't know what's going on. We have indications, but we really don't know. And but supposedly some of the pipelines have been blown up. So more pipelines may be blown up. So what is Germany going to do without Nord Stream? Yeah, but it's electricity and whatnot you need the gas for, I think. Create the situation by themselves, and so the U.S. country. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up to here. Germany and France always tries to have Ukraine as a neutral country. Yeah, well, thank you, Arno. How could commies getting to Taiwan possibly affect you? Well, one, they may destroy Taiwan, and so that cuts off our access to semiconductors because China is the only other substantial producer of semiconductors. So, yeah. You guys are going typing much faster than I can. So Schultz did. Ukraine can be part of the military alliance that chooses part of it. Yeah. But you see, Ukraine did have a Russian government. Ukraine isn't, in my opinion, a stable country. And it's already been invaded by Russia. So it's not going to be invited anytime soon into NATO. You expect a power closer to here to get stuff. Trade with China, Ukraine, not part of NATO. Yeah. Put into NATO long ago. Full-scale war in Europe would be a major profit for America. No, okay. Here, war is not profitable. I am sorry. It is not profitable. War is hugely expensive, and you don't profit from it. At least not in the modern world of industrial production. What is profitable is the threat of war. Okay, war is not profitable. The threat of war is profitable. So it's the arms race. It's if you start shooting all the aircraft out of the air, that is hugely expensive for nations. They can't just afford to buy new stuff because it's hugely costly. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details, but the idea of your enemy's just got these new aircraft. Well, you got to upgrade your aircraft now. That kind of stuff, upgrading aircraft, building new ships, that kind of thing, that is profitable. The threat of war is profitable, not the war. The war is hugely ruinous. Trust me on this. You say profit for America because we're going to be sitting back to sell the weapons. I know, but you bankrupt countries. It would be better to constantly be selling new weapons to NATO members, periodically upgrading them over the years, than have them get bombed and shelled and ruined in the war. Sure, the U.S. companies may be sending the missiles, but once that war is over, the nations aren't going to have any more money to buy anything. So it's in the long run, it's actually ruinous. So don't get with that left stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff to catch up. It wasn't profitable. U.S. had so much debt after World War II, it took years to pay off. It was not profitable. It just wasn't as ruinous as it was for Europe or Japan or China. NATO wasn't so bold. This isn't about NATO. I've talked about how with this map with these sort of little puppet states have long been there since 1992, and Moldova had been a pro until just 2 or 3 years ago had been a pro-Russian communist country, actually pro-Russian communist country. This has always been about the wish of Russia to re-expand back in these territories, because especially this Transnistria little puppet state here could not exist without Russian constant monetary support. So this isn't just about NATO. That's a BS disinformation. They've always wanted to expand. Yeah, long time brewing. Germany is an energy crisis. They needed that. Yeah, Germany's going to have an energy crisis. France, I understand, has been building up their nuclear power. Germany has been dismantling nuclear power, and I don't know if they can build coal plants fast enough, because I know Germany has plenty of coal. Green energy isn't useful. Sorry, people. I mean, yeah, if you're having some camper somewhere, you want to put a solar panel up on it, so while you're camping to get a little extra electricity, cool. But it don't supply enough power to really do anything significant. New in hindsight, reality. Maybe Canada should seize Alaska. Remember, Starstreak, every Alaskan has a gun. There are more guns in Alaska than there are people in Canada, I think. I'm not sure on that number. But everybody in Alaska has a gun. And if there's 4 or 5 people living in some big city that don't have a gun, there's a bunch of people that have 20 guns. So I'm sure there are more guns in Alaska than there are people. Canada can't invade Alaska. Sorry, it won't work. They can't do that. Hell, southern 48 states can't invade Alaska if Alaska doesn't want them to. They all have guns. No, that's not why. Kevin, how you doing, Kevin Worthington? China does not want Taiwan for the economy. Not at all. Because they've told us why they want Taiwan. 2 reasons. 1, they want to, just like Hitler, they want to unify all Chinese people under one government. Reason number 1, just that. 2, reason number 2 is China has realized that they made a huge mistake with their Cultural Revolution. They lost so much. They look at Taiwan as that sort of reserve of ancient Chinese culture that fled. So like if you want to do high-level acupressure or whatever, or acupuncture or whatever, all these other high-level stuff, it's all in Taiwan. They want to get that back into China. It's sort of a cultural treasure box that they want back. So it's not just because they're Chinese-speaking people or Chinese ethnic people. It's their cultural heritage that was lost. They don't really care about the economics. Economics is not the reason for Taiwan. Erdogan is a dictator in there. We should have nuclear power plants. Yes, hello, Extreme Finger. How you doing? If I haven't already said so. We have Christina. They're all views concentrated. Yeah, okay. I'm trying to catch up to. Looking like Putin will nuke them if he can't win. Hello, Iced Out 21. That would be a really big danger. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say he's not. I wouldn't think so, but I don't know. Yeah, we need it. Yeah, as Beam Sam said, we needed Turkey in the Cold War. We don't need them now. We'll be able to export BMWs. Gotta go make lunch. Okay, Martin Smith, thanks for being here. Catching up on your priority left. Just still trying to catch up with the chat. Okay, well, no, Iced Out. Let's go with the stats. Russian nukes. That's one of the graphics I've been using. Russia, according to this, has 6,257 nukes. U.S. 5,550. But I would, again, from my knowledge, U.S. targeting systems are much more accurate than Russian targeting systems. So, you drop 3 nukes on one place isn't necessarily any more good than dropping one on a place. So, Russia, the balance, don't let the larger numbers make you think that Russia is more nuclear effective than the U.S. But it's still big and serious. So, but that doesn't mean also that all these are ready to shoot. How good are their missiles? How good are their aircraft that are going to carry them? I don't know. So yeah, that's they have a lot of stuff. Nord Stream 2 is always political business issue. The point, yeah, and see, this was Trump's point. Supposedly he made it to Angela Merkel in person. Angela Merkel and Germany were not spending their share of defense, which they weren't, according to treaty. According to, see, everybody, oh, well, NATO treaty, if you attack one NATO, it's going to trigger. But, well, there's a NATO treaty that says you're supposed to spend a percentage of your GDP on defense. And I think all but 1 or 2, and they're just minor countries, all of the major ones were not spending their GDP levels. It's sort of like Latvia or Lithuania or whatever that were spending what they're supposed to. All the rest weren't spending. None of them were. So they were already in violation of their treaties. Treaties are just a piece of paper. So he was complaining that, well, you're buying natural gas from Russia. Germany's buying natural gas from Russia, and you're asking America to pay to defend Germany. Why the hell aren't you buying your natural gas from America, which under Trump we had excess of to sell? Why don't you buy it from America? Why are you buying it from Russia? Because you're funding your enemy that you're wanting to defense from. Because Russia is going to, the reason they're buying it was cheaper to get from Russia, of course. But why not buy it from America? Yeah, it's going to pay more for it, but you're not giving money to the person who you're worried about hurting you, and you're relying upon American defense. This is why Trump really sort of had it with a lot of these Europeans. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. It sounds ironic, but I meant it. Rearrangements need to be done, bringing Ezekiel. Saudi Arabia is a player, just in energy, nothing else. Saudi Arabia can't even successfully control Aden. They're having huge losses in the Houthi war down in Yemen, I should say, not Aden, but Yemen. They can't control Yemen, their own peninsula, so that they're a bit of a local power, but only locally. But America helped reconstruction of Europe. I wouldn't say no. U.S. reconstructed Europe after World War II and lost its industrial capacity out of that. Detroit is a ghost city. It went from Detroit and other major industrial cities went from the massive industrial power banks to ghost towns now, and it's Germany that got the benefit out of that. So no, you're wrong. If you look at American industry, we helped out Europe and we lost from that. That is totally incorrect. Likely out of the question for Germany, but maybe they can receive some nuclear power plants. Well, I think it may be quicker to build a coal power plant than a nuclear one, but I don't know. I'm not a construction engineer. Are not yet. Yeah, they're not. Yes, green technologies are not yet to replace tradition. You can use them at the margins, but not to replace. Guns didn't help the people of Alaska in 30. Didn't help Alaska in 30 days of night. I don't know what that statement is, but 16-year-old. I want to be his legacy. Yes, Xi wants that. That's true. I'm still alive, Anderson. How you doing? Good. Okay, yeah, I had heard that they were going to be sending Chechens. I don't know if they've made it there yet, but yeah. Um, Russia just now threatens Sweden and Finland. Yeah, I've heard. Yes, I heard that threat. I think that threat will make them join NATO more quickly. No, I think they want the population. At least that's some of the analysis I've heard that's there. Um, Targeting won't matter much. Yeah, that's true. Targeting won't matter if you just shoot everything. But if they all land in the same place, then that's not that bad. You know, meaning we lose one city. You know, all missiles land in one spot. So targeting does matter. To the player, I mean, economically, yeah, somewhat. My map is wrong. Well, I don't know which one. And yes, all maps are propaganda. All maps are propaganda. Doesn't mean they're incorrect. It just means they're propaganda. Troy fell from different reasons. Yeah. Well, the car industry does. Okay, Cameroon. Thanks for being here. Okay, everybody, if you're new here, please give the channel a 30 Days a Night movie where they attack by vampire. Okay, vampire movie. I don't know the movie. So yeah, okay. If you're new here, like I was starting to say, please follow the channel on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube. I think we've covered the topic what we can today. Maybe we'll look at this again next week if there's enough changes. I am very worried about what's going to happen because this can spiral out of control. This can be like 1914 or like 1939. It can be. Not saying it will, but occasional distant gunfire. What's the difference? Okay, well, what's the difference? In 1939, Germany, leading up to 1939, leading up to it, Germany had signed this thing called the Versailles Treaty that ended World War I. And Hitler broke the Versailles Treaty in many cases in many ways, including reoccupying the Saarland and then remilitarizing the Rhineland, and then because they weren't allowed to, taking over Austria and cutting off the special ports that in Stettin and Hamburg that Czechoslovakia had, and then taking the Sudetenland, and then taking the rest of Czechoslovakia. And he got to the point that when Britain and France signed a defensive treaty with Poland, they're going to ignore that. And he was only worried about what Russia would do, so he did the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Well, Hitler did not want World War II right then. He just wanted a war with Poland. He wanted a war with Poland, but that was it. He got World War II. He rolled the dice. That was wrong. Okay. World War I was an escalation of mobilization. Austria's, effectively in a modern term sense, Austria's vice president was killed, the Archduke Ferdinand. So he was the next guy in line. He gets killed. There's months of negotiation, and then Austria has had enough, so they invade Bosnia-Herzegovina. Well, that says that brings Russia into the war. Well, because France, they were worried about French mobilization, Germany was, and they knew that France and Russia had a treaty. They expected the treaties to be honored, where they didn't in World War II. They expected the treaties to be honored, and so Germany attacks France when they're going to war with Russia because they figure there's going to be a two-front war and they wanted to knock out France. They figured France they could knock out fast and take their time on Russia. Obviously, the other way around would have been better. But that's looking back. So it was an escalation of mobilizations. So it's just like if Germany forward deploys a bunch of units to Poland, does that mean that Russia's going to attack Poland and not wait? You know, what? How is it going to? Is it going to look more like World War I or World War II? I don't know, but those are sort of different kind of things. Okay, just like this. So yeah, so there's different ways it could go, and of course it's its own thing. But this is problems. Okay, my throat is really sore right now. I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys. Yeah, no, I haven't contacted my friend who lives in Sochi. I'm not going to say the name right now. But yeah, I know people on both, sort of both sides of this issue. So, and yeah, I want to thank you all. Good to see a lot of new people here. Hope this was interesting. Hope it's informative. If you missed the beginning of it, you can go back early and see the rest. Thank you. Thanks for following and subscribing, liking the videos. Be back next week either with more Hearts of Iron, and/or if there's enough new stuff, like I was saying, we'll talk about Ukraine or other things as they happen. So thanks, everyone. Thanks so much. See you next time.